It redeployed the ramp and tested whether the payloads are also working at the new site, and they were indeed working. So yes, ISRO is time and again testing its capability with the entire Chandrayaan-3 mission, which has been extremely successful so far. But just again to remind our viewers that the mission life was 14 Earth days. So unlike Russia's Luna 25, which had actually was designed to perform experiments for a period of 1 Earth year, it had those necessary arrangements on board to withstand or to endure the lunar night. In case of ISRO, those arrangements are not there. But let's see if ISRO can achieve success in this little experiment and revive the lander Vikram and Pragyan rover once again on September 22nd.
That's all we could pack in for you in this edition of Nation at 5, but there's lots lined up for you here on CNN News 18. My colleague Griha joins you next with Viewpoint.
Is there no concern that they issue death threats against Indian diplomats? They're now particularly targeting Hindu Indo-Canadians, and the government seems to be doing nothing.
India now getting a chance to drop the diplomatic niceties after Trudeau's initiative. What does this mean that you have to have parity in your consulate strength? He's got no arrests to show. The killers of Hardeep Nijjar are still unknown. Why is there no quota within quota?
There is also no constitutional provision for reservation in the name of religion. If you look at the Congress's proposal by Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, was that women from the SC/ST and other women per se will not receive reservation for 15 years. In fact, she had curtailed the reservation to only 10 years.
Good evening and a warm welcome. I'm Griha Siddiqui and you're watching Viewpoint. Amid the circulation of an online video in which Hindu Canadians are told to leave the country, Canada has said that acts of aggression, hate, intimidation or incitement of fear have no place in the country. This statement closely follows Ottawa's allegations suggesting New Delhi's potential involvement in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Sikh separatist, in a Vancouver suburb in June. It is now being learned that this claim is grounded in surveillance activities conducted on Indian diplomats in Canada. This was reportedly done on specific intelligence that was received from a significant ally within the Five Eyes intelligence sharing alliance of the United States, Britain, Australia, New Zealand and Canada. Now remember, India also enjoys close ties with the rest of these countries except Canada now, and the Ministry of External Affairs has said that it is discussing the matter with them to formally convey India's position. In response to these developments, India took measures to halt the issuance of visas to Canadian citizens and requested a reduction in Canada's diplomatic personnel as the Canadian diplomatic presence in India exceeds that of India in Canada. In the midst of this, the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has reasserted the charges against India and said that there are credible reasons to believe that the Government of India-linked agents are behind Nijjar's killing. However, even in Canada, these claims have less takers. His political rival and Canada's opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre, has taken a jibe at Trudeau to come out clean with all the facts behind his claims first in order to make judgments. This, when looked at together with India's stern statement against Canada as being the safe haven for separatist Khalistani groups, and what New Delhi sees as the Liberal Party's pandering to these very groups for votes, really now puts Trudeau on a sticky territory. Add to this, the alleged Khalistan referendum nudged along by Pakistani intelligence agencies that has been a major irritant in the recent years. New Delhi has objected to Canada permitting the secessionist referendum among the Sikh diaspora and warned against the hate crimes. However, Canada has chosen not to act, citing freedom of expression and the right to protest. What it has done, though, as provocation no less, is accused New Delhi in essence of extrajudicial killing of a foreign citizen in a foreign land, a claim which, if supported by compelling evidence, could potentially damage India's post-G20 reputation as a strong voice for democracy and a global consensus builder. But the question is, where is the evidence?
There are credible reasons to believe that agents of the government of India were involved in the killing of a Canadian on Canadian soil. And we call upon the government of India to engage with us to move forward on getting to the truth of this matter.
The larger issues of terrorism, and not just terrorism, but also the fact that it is being funded and supported, and we know this for some time from our western neighbor Pakistan. But the issue of safe havens and places to operate is being provided abroad, including in Canada.
Let's first get our viewers a sense of how have the diplomatic ties between India and Canada nosedived. What was the reason for this entire posturing by Justin Trudeau and retaliatory action by both India and Canada? Let's get our viewers a sense through this piece of timeline that we have put together. Now, the first thing that has happened from the Canadian side is the expulsion of Indian diplomat over the claims of Nijjar's killing, which they have attributed to India without an evidence shown so far. In retaliation, India went on to expel a senior Canadian diplomat. So this is tit-for-tat action that is going on. Canada later issues travel advisory for India, claims territories like Manipur and Jammu and Kashmir unsafe for travelling for Canadians. India wants its own citizens to be cautious while travelling to Canada, and people who are already there should also exercise caution. Now, Canada later calls on India to cooperate in the murder probe. Remember, these allegations were put forth by the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau himself, where he had alleged that there were Government of India linked agents that were involved in the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who in fact has secessionist tendencies, something that was in fact put as part of a list by India. That list was given to the Canadian authorities back in 2018, also featured other Khalistani supporters. Nijjar's name was very much on that list. Nothing was done about it. And then Canada goes ahead after coming back from G20. The Prime Minister says India was behind Nijjar's killing. Retaliatory action by India suspends visa services for Canadians. Now, we have been talking about how all of this is a forceful action that Justin Trudeau has been doing because of him being a prey to domestic politics. Remember, his is a minority government and it is being supported by the New Democratic Party, which of course has Khalistan leanings. And because of that, this entire aspect of Canada being a safe haven, what MEA has also said, for these secessionist forces has come to light and nothing really is done about it. Let's take a look at what really is Trudeau's position so far politically, only in the Canadian landscape so far. Whether it is plummeting, whether it's going higher up, this sort of stat is going to put together everything for you. If you take a look at Trudeau's party, total share that it commands is 31%. Out of that, you can see the male and female ratio, and people who are unsure of whether they like him or not are a whopping 38%. So his popularity really going down. As compared to that, his political rival Poilievre has a popularity of 40%. 43% male like him, 39% female, 18% have no response. If we talk about the NDP, Jagdeep, 22% popularity. It's very, very close to Trudeau's popularity, and his alliance with Trudeau's party is the main reason why Trudeau is in power at all. And that is what the stats show about him. Of course, Blanchett, the other member of this entire political spectrum, the political topography of Canada, has a basic or meager 6% share. But when it comes to Trudeau's popularity, this is what it's looking like, or what exactly, or where does he fare when it comes to the people of Canada and otherwise. Now, on that note, let me take this across to my guests who are joining me on Viewpoint. Mr. Ashok Sajana, who is a former diplomat, is with us. Also with us is Terry Milowski, who is the author for Blood, 50 Years of the Global Khalistan Project. Also joining us this evening is Commodore G.J. Singh, who is a defense analyst. And last but not the least, with us is also Lieutenant General K.J. Singh, who is a former GOC in Chief of the Western Command. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. Mr. Sajana, good evening. I'll begin with you first. The fact that there has been a fresh statement that has come about by the Canadian Prime Minister, where he's reiterated that there is ample evidence against India, that there has been an Indian involvement behind the killing of Nijjar. Yet those evidences have not been put out in the public domain. How does one read that statement?
Yeah, thank you very much, Griha, for having me on your show. The first charge that he made, and it was really a bombshell. I don't think anyone expected it, not in Canada, not in India, not anywhere else, that India was somehow involved in the killing of a Canadian national on Canadian soil. The words that he used, the expression that he used was, we have credible allegations for a potential involvement of an Indian person. And these are the sort of statements also, this is the sort of phraseology, Griha, that even his foreign minister, Melanie Joly, she used. She said, if this is proven correct, and we have this indication, there is no evidence that has been coming, even as far as the press statement that he has made in New York. He has again said we have reasonable, credible reasons. There is no mention of any evidence that he has over the last so many days. It's already more than 3 months since this murder took place. There has been no charge sheet that we are aware of that has been filed, Griha. There have been no arrests that have been made. And, the MEA official spokesperson said yesterday that there is no substantive information that has been shared with India. So I think it is, he is talking in thin air. He has no evidence to support his claims. And I think it is highly irresponsible and apolitical, the way he's gone about it. He's really painted himself in a corner. And the best thing that he can now do is retract his statement and, go back on his words, because he's not been able to substantiate anything of what he has said. Reha.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Sajana. Mr. Milowski, I'd want your inputs here. The fact that we're talking about the domestic politics that governs Trudeau's statements and his actions currently. And right now, we also understand that there is a political party, the NDP, that heavily supports him. It has leanings with the Khalistan movement that gains ground in Canada, very much so, and evidently so. You have written a book on this. How does one read that? And also, I had just put together before our viewers on where does Trudeau really stand politically as well. Is any of this really working for him?
Well, obviously, Prime Minister Trudeau is on very thin ice. He is at a low ebb, as you've already described, in the polls. And there's no question that if there were an election in Canada tomorrow, that the Conservatives would win, according to these polls. Having said that, Mr. Trudeau has sort of obviously painted himself into a corner while simultaneously putting his head in a noose. That's a very rare feat. So he's really in a bad spot. But that pressure, we should realize that pressure on him to produce the goods, to produce some evidence, comes not just from the Indian side, but domestically. And I think you've made that clear when you show the poll numbers. Now, I have a little bit of news which your viewers should be aware of, and that is, I predicted quite wrongly a couple of days ago, I think it was on your network, that it would only take a couple of days before Trudeau would be forced to start leaking information at the very least. And I was wrong. It wasn't a couple of days, it was 3 days. And those 3 days are up, and now the leaks have begun. So, as of last night, my former colleagues at the CBC are reporting that Canada is now leaking that it has some signals intelligence, SIGINT, as it's known in the spy trade, as well as HUMINT, that is human beings reporting information, to demonstrate that there was indeed some contact between someone who had something to do with the Indian government, perhaps a diplomat in Ottawa, and that this signals intelligence was gathered not necessarily by Canada, but by one of its Five Eyes allies. That presumably means, the United States, which has, by the way, stepped up and said, no, the reporting that we were reluctant to back up the Canadians is wrong. We are backing them up, and we view all this with deep concern. So the Americans are indicating that they do stand with Canada. They haven't gone beyond that. And the Canadians have begun leaking to try to save the Prime Minister's neck, to suggest that don't think that he came out and said this just for political reasons, the ones that you have just described to your viewers. He's doing this because he did have some hard information. Now, they're not saying what this information is. You can't hang very much on it. It's simply saying that we've got something solid. And there's another thing that the Canadians are saying this morning, and that is, bear in mind that what you have seen from the Indian side in the last couple of days is a lot of noise about gangsters being sheltered in Canada, about the referendum votes and all the many grievances that have accumulated on the Indian side over the years, and in my view, quite rightly. But in addition, the Canadians are now saying, look, notice that the Indian government is not denying specifically these allegations. They don't do that in private. This is the Canadian claim, that it's significant to note that privately speaking, and they've been meeting for weeks about this at the official level, that India is not really denying our allegations. Now, of course, publicly they have. They've called it absurd, in the words of Foreign Minister Jaishankar.
Absolutely.
But this is, I think, the beginning of the next phase of this, the war of the leaks.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Miliuski. Commodore Singh, I'd want your inputs on this exact point that Mr. Miliuski has shared. I'd want to understand this one aspect. Is this nitpicking by Canada really working, considering, like Mr. Miliuski rightly said, India has already called these allegations absurd? That is one reaction that has come in, and of course they will be participating in whatever capacity that is required of them to participate in the investigation that Canada has now called for. Yet this sort of a response that's coming in from Canada, that's been reported in the local network, how do you read that?
Thank you, Riha, for taking me on your show first. I do agree with Terry Miliuski, but at the same time, I would like to say that the center of gravity of this whole nosediving of the Indo-Canadian ties lies in the unbridled statements, tongue out of Justin Trudeau, because he's totally bereft of the knowledge, of the background of the very person to whom he is asking for, who he's supporting, Nijar, who is basically a plumber turned Khalistani, a criminal and a fugitive from India who came to Canada in 1997 and obtained citizenship there in 2001. And apart from this, Mr. Justin Trudeau is not aware of the I would say, the knowledge of the Punjabi culture, the Sikh history, the advent of Sikhism, the history of Sikhs and Punjabis, because basically all these people who are living in Canada, whether they are Khalistani, other Canadians, Hindu Canadians, they're all fundamentally are Punjabis. And they have a common heritage, common culture. Probably Mr. Justin Trudeau is not aware of it. And he doesn't know that the Sikhs are not only those who are turban wearing. There are large number of devout Sikhs who are not having turban. They are what we call Sahidari without here. They are very devout Hindus. they are devout Sindhis, they are devout Sikhs. So therefore, he is totally, I would call, bereft of this understanding.
Okay.
And therefore, he making statements which are totally, as I put them, as unbridled in the absence of all this knowledge which he should have. He doesn't know about the culture of what we have in our country, of Vedic culture or Gita or Guru Granth Sahib or other holy books. He's just a biblical literate person. And not only that, I would say that he has not only causing embarrassment in his own country, in fact, trying to, with his statements and its government's attitude, polarizing the Hindus and Sikhs in Canada, which may trigger social unrest or tensions within his own country. He should be also aware of this fact. And apart from this, if I look at the internationally, his image, the United States have refused to condemn what he wants these Five Eyes to condemn. They have distanced themselves. US has very diplomatically, in a beautifully drafted, very well balanced statement, have said that we want India to, look into this matter, as the Canadian Prime Minister's claim about India's role is there, that it is critical that the perpetrators of the murder were brought to justice. UK itself, UK Foreign Minister says that it is important for a Canadian to probe, runs its course, and because the allegations are very serious.
Yes.
Australia that the matter has been already conveyed to senior at senior level. France has got very close.
Absolutely. Commodore Singh, I would get to Mr. Ashok Sajjanar to weigh in on the international response so far. That's an important point that you're making. But let me also bring in Lieutenant General KJ Singh. Mr. Singh, Lieutenant General Singh, I'd like to once again understand the statement, the strongly worded statement by the Ministry of External Affairs, where they had gone on to call Canada as a safe haven that's been given to these terrorists, to these secessionist elements, to the Khalistan elements. And that is a huge statement to make. This is not Pakistan that we're talking about. This is not Afghanistan that we're talking about. This is a Western country. And calling it a safe haven for terrorists, this also is a huge blot on the face of Canada, even as it's making allegations at India. How do you read that strongly worded MEA's response?
Griha, firstly, Jai Hind. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you.
See, this thing has to be seen in the light of the fact that Canada has been allowed to become a kind of a launching base for very nefarious activities which are taking place in Punjab. We have shared dossiers with them, like even this Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who was bumped off in inter-gang warfare. There were 17 charges against him. And many of our fugitives, like this Lawrence Bishnoi gang, there is a Goldie Brar, there is a Rinda, there is a Lind, Nanda, all these designated, named, against some of them red corner notices have been issued. These people are hiding in Canada. Nothing is being done to bring them to justice or hand them over to India. And nothing is being done to facilitate any investigation by NIA. NIA team had gone there. So if you create an ecosystem, and on the ploy of saying that you can have dissent, you can protest, you take out rallies like what they did in Brampton.
Yes.
They took out a rally where they showed
the Indira Gandhi tableau,
and all that, such nonsense you are peddling. So for us, and see, I live in Punjab, let me tell you, there was a bomb blast in a judicial complex in Ludhiana. It was traced back to Canada. This famous icon, Punjabi music icon, Sidhu Moosewala, his murder traced back to Canada. So, financed there, planned there, arming being done there, and vectored from there. All being done from Canada, ramifications taking place in Punjab. Yesterday also, Punjab police had to carry out searches and raids at more than 100 places.
Yes. Yes,
In
and
the
ramifications
future,
are being felt back home. But this point that you're making, that Canada has been providing safe haven to all of these secessionist elements, and it was a grouse that was raised by India, not just in 2018, but I think this has been the simmering issue since the 1980s. Mr. Sajjanar, when it is about the international response, and also the point that Mr. Milewski made of the Five Eyes and how there was the Canadian intelligence seeking from within that alliance, that intelligence sharing alliance. United States of America is part of that. They have been very guarded in their response because they also share a good equation, a very, very good equation with India. We are also seeing how the External Affairs Minister is going to be visiting California, and there is going to be a conversation not just around Canada, but amongst other things, a series of bilaterals. Canada and the relationship, how it has nosedived with India, is going to be a crucial one, a crucial conversation between India and US. In the face of that, how do you read these international responses that have come about? First, US, UK, and also Australia.
Yeah, I think very important issue, Greha. And the way I look at it is, I would like to use the same word that you have used, that their responses have by and large been guarded. Their responses have by and large been cautious. And I think this, needs to be recognized because, after all, Canada is a member of the G7. It's also a member of the Five Eyes as far as security exchanges are concerned. So it's a very close partner. It's a very close partner for a very, very long time. As far as India is concerned, India's relations with the United States, I think they are the best that they have ever been. And for the last 23 years, starting 2000, they have been on the upward trajectory. And now, as we hear that Prime Minister Modi has also invited President Biden as the chief guest next year on India's Republic Day. So let's see what the response is. But the bottom line is that our relations are very strong, very vibrant, both on account of bilateral reasons as well as geopolitical considerations and the turmoil and turbulence that is taking place in the world. Similarly, with Australia is also a member of the Quad, like the United States is, and our relationship is very strong. It has evolved and developed over the last several years, and particularly after Mr. Albanese has come to power in 2020, I think that has taken off very strongly. And the United Kingdom, the relations are again, very dynamic, very vibrant, and particularly we saw the hugely successful visit of Prime Minister Rishi Sunak here.
Yes.
So their responses have been quite cautious, quite guarded, because they don't want to take sides ever. But the bottom line, Greha, what they have told Canada is complete the investigation and produce the evidence.
Yes.
Without that, you are just, talking in thin air. You have no basis on which to make allegations. And now when we come to this whole issue of leaks, I don't know, meaning this is all cloak and dagger sort of a story that, if there is something substantive, is there something solid about it, why don't you share it with India? Till yesterday, there was nothing at all that India has received from them. And of course, what these leaks are, it is not since yesterday and today. Obviously, they've had it. If they, if what they are saying is there is some factual accuracy to it, they've had it for some time. Why have they not shared it? Neither with us nor with any of the other countries. And so I think
do you think this also puts the position of the countries that are part of this intelligence sharing alliance, the Five Eyes, all of them, like I had said earlier, have good relations with India. That sort of puts them in a place of concern, because they would not want to come out clean, even if there is some sort of a truth to these reports that are coming out from Canada itself through a Canadian broadcaster, and these reports are now being heavily followed. Is this at all going to be back, considering the relationship that these countries have with India?
I don't think so. I think this is...
Yeah, please go ahead,
Sorry.
Mr. Sajjanar. Then I'll go to Mr. Milewski.
Okay, fine. So, I think India is, in my view, and this view can be challenged by anyone that might want to. I think India is far too important in terms of geopolitical relations as also in terms of bilateral relations, economic, technological, and strategic and defense ties. India is far too important for any of this to, tarnish or mar the relationship in any way. There might be a little hiccup, a little turbulence here and there, but I think after that, and we've seen that by and large, with the most important strategic partner of India, the United States, the trajectory has been upward. There might have been sort of, some, when Mr. Trump was there and, some issues on trade and so on and so forth. But by and large, the trajectory has been upwards. And I think irrespective of what the outcome of this is, the trajectory will be upwards. But let me add the last comment here. I don't think, Griha, there is an iota of factual accuracy or truth in all these leaks, because having been in the government for more than 3 decades, I know how the government of India works. And this is not our style. We have been at the receiving end of all these killings and attacks and so on and so forth. And India is not into that business. We take it through the governments. That is why over the last 20, 30 years, we have shared all these dossiers. We've shared all the evidence with the government of Canada, encouraging them and hoping that they would take some action against these elements. But we see that, 3 months ago, it was Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Before that, it was Ripudaman. Today, it is Sukha. It is really becoming a place of organized, violent, organized gang warfare.
Mr. Bilyuski, yes, you wanted to make that point, but I'd want to also understand from you. Yesterday, the entire social media was dominated with this video that was leaked online, where you'd had Pannoon really come out and get Indians who were staying in Canada to get out of Canada, fearing for their lives. That was an open threat that was put out. Of course, there was retaliation and there was a critique that was coming in from within Trudeau's party, in the wake of the comments that were made by Mr. Chandra Arya. But do you think now Canada is facing that pressure, because of which these sort of actions and the recent statement that has just come out that Canada is not supportive of all of these statements has been made? And of course, this Five Eyes intelligence sharing and everything is also a part of that?
I think it's absolutely certain that this is an inflection point in the whole relationship, where Canada is going to be fought. No matter what happens on the specific allegations about the murder of Hardeep Nijjar, no matter, set that aside for the moment. The whole long bad history of India-Canada relations and Canada's coddling of terrorists, all of that is going to be dug up and examined, and Canada's going to have to take a fresh look at that. 20 years ago, I did a documentary for the CBC called Safe Haven, arguing that Khalistani terrorists had chosen well when they chose Canada to shelter while launching attacks within India and upon India. So it shows just how much people listen to me, and obviously not at all, because nothing changed. And now I hope that it will change, because India is completely correct to complain about. This goes far beyond what most Canadians would think is free speech. When you are putting up posters, painting targets on the backs of Indian diplomats, you're applauding the assassination of Indira Gandhi, and now you're allowing people like Mr. Pannoon, basically he's telling Hindus to go back home, get out of Canada. It's targeting a particularly ethnic group, and there are Canadian laws about that, about hate speech against a particular ethnic group. There are, however, not Canadian laws that are adequate to deal with what you might call the glorification of terrorism, which is banned in many countries.
And that's where I think Canada is lacking, and they need to work towards that. That's an important point that you've made, Mr. Bilyuski. I'd like to thank all the gentlemen for joining me on the broadcast. Unfortunately, very short on time on this first debate, but that is the answering that Canada really needs to do. Whether or not that response is going to be coming out of the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in time is something that we'd have to wait and watch for. We are slipping into a very short break, but up next, Rahul Gandhi bats for OBC quota in the Women's Reservation Bill. We are sharing all of those details and putting that side up for debate on the other part of Viewpoint.
Brought to you by
एप्पल की तरफ से।
अच्छा, क्या खास बातें इसमें आपको लगी अच्छी लगी? ऑल प्रीवियस वर्जन पे थे, अपना आईफोन 15 के, क्या खास बातें लगी जिससे आप अट्रैक्ट हुआ इसमें?
सर अट्रैक्ट की तो कोई बात नहीं है, मेरे को है ही कि अंदर से कि मेरे को लेना ही है। हरदम मैंने टॉप फ़ोन रखे हैं, 13 था, 13 प्रो मैक्स भी मेरे पास था, 14 प्रो मैक्स भी मेरे पास है। अब 15 आया तो मुझे था कि 15 प्रो मैक्स ही लेना है और वो भी सबसे पहले लेना है। जी सर।
4 बजे से आप करें, कल रात से प्लानिंग कर ली थी कि
हाँ बिल्कुल सर, मैंने कल रात से प्लानिंग कर ली थी। सुबह 3:30 में उठा था, उसके बाद सीधा 4 बजे मैं यहाँ पे आ गया था सर।
आपको कार्यक्रम की कल्पना भी करनी थी, समस्याओं के विषय में भी इमेजिन करना था कि क्या हो सकता है, क्या नहीं हो सकता है। ऐसा होगा तो ऐसा करेंगे, ऐसा होगा तो ऐसा करेंगे। बहुत कुछ आपको अपने तरीके से इवॉल्व करना पड़ा होगा और इसलिए मेरा आप सबसे एक विशेष आग्रह है। आप कहेंगे कि इतना काम करवा दिया कि अभी भी छोड़ेंगे नहीं क्या? मेरा आग्रह ऐसा है कि जब से इस काम से आप जुड़े होंगे, कोई 3 साल से जुड़ा होगा, कोई 4 साल से जुड़ा होगा, कोई 4 महीने से जुड़ा होगा, पहले दिन से जब आपसे बात हुई तब से लेकर के जो जो भी हुआ हो, अगर आपको इसको रिकॉर्ड कर दें, लिख दें सारा, और सेंट्रली जो व्यवस्था करते हैं कोई एक वेबसाइट तैयार करें, सब अपनी अपनी भाषा में लिखें, जिसको जो भी सुविधा हो, कि उन्होंने किस प्रकार से इस काम को किया, कैसे देखा, क्या कमियां नजर आई, कोई समस्या आई तो कैसे रास्ता खोला। अगर ये आपका अनुभव रिकॉर्ड हो जाएगा तो वो एक भविष्य के कार्यों के लिए उसमें से एक अच्छी गाइडलाइंस तैयार हो सकती है और वो एक इंस्टीट्यूशन का काम कर सकती है, जो चीजों को आगे करने के लिए, जो इसके भी जिम्मे जब भी काम आएगा वो उसका उपयोग करेगा। और इसलिए आप जितनी बारीकी से एक एक चीज को लिख करके, भले 100 पेज हो जाए, और आप कल तो उसके लिए कपबोर्ड की जरूरत नहीं है, क्लाउड पर रख दिया तो फिर तो वहां बहुत जगह है, लेकिन इन चीजों का बहुत उपयोग है। तो मैं चाहूंगा कि कोई व्यवस्था बने और आप लोग इसका फायदा उठाएं। खैर, मैं आपको सुनना चाहता हूं, आपके अनुभव जानना चाहता हूं। अगर आप में से कोई शुरुआत करें, सबसे पहले कौन है? जी।
जय हिंद सर, मेरा नाम पिंकी रानी है और मैं हरियाणा से एक छोटे से गांव गोची से बिलोंग करती हूं। सर, मैं फिलहाल दिल्ली पुलिस में
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is at the Bharat Mandapam, where nearly 250 Delhi police personnel, from the chief of police to constables, are participating in an interaction that's being hosted by the Prime Minister himself. We just hear him give his introductory speech. This is felicitating all the police personnel in the national capital after the success of G20 summit, where India hosted the summit as president. This event is currently being held at Bharat Mandapam. This will be followed by a cultural event and a special dinner as well. And a total of 3,000 people, this includes functionaries from various ministries, are all participating in this program. Nearly 250 Delhi police personnel and officers from the chief of police to constables are participating in this interaction. And this is, of course, to mark a culmination of the successful culmination, in fact, of the G20 summit at the Bharat Mandapam. We are given to understand that the Prime Minister and his interaction is going to be conducted with all of these people who are assembled, 250 in number, who are part of the police services. And according to the officers, the selection of police personnel across rank has been done by Police Chief Sanjay Arora's office. And this has asked all the heads of G20 zones to nominate the staff members who are present today at this event that's being hosted by the Prime Minister of the country. On that note, we're slipping into a very short break and coming right back.
एक दिन में एक ऑटो
We're entering the Apple Socket store and we're going to take you to the first look of the new iPhone 15 Pro range. So as you enter, the iPhone 15 series has entirely captured the floor over here. You will not find any iPhone 14s right now. And we have the 15 Plus over here. That's the first thing you'll see the moment you enter the Apple Socket store, or in fact the Apple BKT store in Mumbai as well. So this is the 15 Plus. Well, you have the dynamic island over here, and not to forget the Type-C port is over here as well. And this is the 15 Pro. 15 Pro. Again, the Type-C in iPhones. It's looking so weird that we're so used to seeing Type-C in Android phones only, and for the first time we're getting to see Type-C ports in iPhones. And this is the king of the show, the iPhone 15 Pro Max. This is like the maxed out edition. This is the titanium finish that you can see, and this is the titanium finish. And let's see the pricing. So the minimum base variant of the iPhone 15 Pro Max is 256 GB, and yet it starts at 1,59,900. That's quite expensive, especially in India compared to other countries. But yeah, this is the flagship device of this year's iPhone range. And if you're on budget, if you have around 75,000 rupees, then this is the iPhone 15. Now there is a dynamic island in all of these iPhones. The first time you're getting to see dynamic islands on all the new iPhone 15 range, and of course USB Type-C. As far as the processor is concerned, the iPhone 15 has the same processor like the iPhone 14 Pro. So it's basically, you can say, the iPhone 14 Pro with dynamic island. That's what the iPhone 15 is all about. And this is the A16 Bionic chip, A16. This is the A17 Pro. Now, this is a new chipset, and this is very powerful. A17 Pro chipset on both this and the 15 Pro Max. You can convert the iPhone 15 Pro series into a gaming console. You can play AAA titles. That's cool. You can just plug into your phone to a monitor and along with a gamepad, and you can game like a pro. That's really interesting. So this is a titanium. Yes, this is the titanium range. As you can see, there are other color options as well. I'll just take you through the iPhone 15. Here's the pink, and this is a lighter shade of the new titanium finish. And there is another interesting color over here. This one. you come to the Apple Socket store, you can touch all the iPhones, and you can actually get to experience all the phones. You can check out all the colors and all accessory range as well. And talking about the iPhone 14, there is a 14 series phones as well. Yes, just for comparisons, if you want to compare and see that which one makes more sense. So this was the new iPhone 15 Pro range. You can of course come into any Apple store, Apple BKC or Apple Socket stores to check it out, or you can also go to Reliance Digital or Chroma or other retail partners as well to check out the new iPhone 15 series. So from September 22nd, that is today, the sales have started, and of course you can just buy the same product online as well. You may get some good discounts. If you're buying in store from any of the Apple store, there is an HDFC card discount of rupees 5,000 that you can get.
Welcome back. You're watching Viewpoint with me, Griha. It was a huge day for Indian democracy as the Rajya Sabha also cleared the landmark Women's Reservation Bill with unanimous support on the 21st of September. And even as Prime Minister Narendra Modi went on to mention the numerous obstacles in the path of the Women's Reservation Bill while lauding its passage, the one big hurdle remains. That is the contentious OBC quota issue. And it is this quota within quota clause that has further united the India bloc that supported the Women's Bill, but with caveats. Congress MP Rahul Gandhi has labelled the bill as a distraction and diversionary tactic by the Bharatiya Janata Party, going on to argue that the bill could very well be implemented before the census and delimitation, but alleged that the government was unwilling to do so. He's also reiterated the demand for an updated census sooner to expedite the implementation of the bill. So this evening on Viewpoint, let's debate if that's a practical go forward.
महिलाओं का जीवन स्तर सुधारने के लिए, क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ बेहतर करने के लिए विमेन लेड डेवलपमेंट का नया युग देश में लाने की जो गारंटी मोदी ने दी थी, ये उसका प्रत्यक्ष प्रमाण है।
सच्चाई ये है कि महिला आरक्षण को आज किया जा सकता है। 33% आज जो सीट्स हैं लोकसभा में, विधानसभा में, वो महिलाओं को दी जा सकती हैं। कोई कॉम्प्लिकेटेड मामला नहीं है, मगर सरकार वो नहीं करना चाहती है। सरकार ने ये देश के सामने रख दिया है, मगर रियलिटी ये है कि ये इंप्लीमेंट आज से 10 साल बाद होगा। ये भी नहीं मालूम कि होगा या नहीं होगा। तो एक प्रकार से ये डिस्ट्रैक्शन टैक्टिक है, डाइवर्जन टैक्टिक है।
Joining me on the broadcast this evening is Mr. Deshratan Nigam, who is a political analyst. We are also waiting for Mr. Ravi Srivastav and Shreya Sharma, who is a lawyer, to be joining us later on the broadcast. I believe Ravi Srivastav is with us. I beg your pardon. Ravi, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. But let me actually begin with Mr. Nigam first. Mr. Nigam, the fact that Rahul Gandhi is claiming that the implementation can be done immediately. The census figures of 2011 can be released, but the intent of the BJP is not to do that. How do you respond?
Griya, in fact, somebody who's not, gone into the intricacies of the law with respect to this particular question, which is Rahul Gandhi, I believe does not know as to how to respond. Now, the law which was made in 2002 clearly said the next delimitation can take place in only 2026.
by 84th Amendment Act. And therefore, and the first census has to take place immediately after 2026, the recent census, and that's what the law has been laid down. And that probably Rahul missed about it. And it's a delimitation commission which will reserve the constituencies, not the government of India, because as Amit Shah ji clearly pointed out, in that case, if we would have done on the lighter note, we would have reserved Wayanad, and therefore he said it on a lighter note. And therefore, let us be very clear, it is not the government, it's the delimitation commission headed by the retired justice of the Supreme Court, then the chief election commissioner, and then other members are there. It's a highly independent body whose orders cannot be challenged in any court. So it is that process which will have to take time after 2026. After the first census, the figures comes where what is the population, what are the gender ratio, how many women are there in a particular constituency. All these factors have to be taken, and these are constitutional mandates, and that has to be adhered to. No government can violate this, and I believe somebody didn't brief Rahul Gandhi properly, and therefore this is the step, the most humongous step whose extent, nature, scope and impact is still sinking in. Probably women also at this point of time do not realize what would be its impact is humongous. And therefore the process is on, and immediately after 2024 election and 2026, when the delimitation commission will be constituted as per the law previously laid down, then only the process will start. And it can be as soon as the census is done, the process will, and I think the government has made it clear, after the election the census process will start, and the law says it has to be a recent census, not the previous census. Please understand, there's a difference between recent census and the previous census. So previous census is 2011.
Yes.
It does not give you the real picture.
Okay. Yes. The technicalities of recent and previous census, Ravi Srivastav, the accusation that the BJP is levelling at Rahul Gandhi and in turn the Congress party is oversimplification of a complicated legal issue that cannot really be just done and expedited just because you've said so, even by bringing in the necessary amendments. How do you respond?
Griha, this is a half-cooked exercise, I would say, passing this bill in such a hurry, and the kind of suspense which was made, 2 days before the opposition was told that we are going to bring the bill. The bill's details or intricacies were not discussed with the people. Just to have a claim and say that we brought this women reservation bill. That kind of taking credit exercise has forced BJP to bring it. Now, official timeline says 6 years from now. What Rahul Gandhi has said may take even up to 10 years, or may which government will come, what will be the circumstances, nobody knows. What he says is that first of all, BJP lost 10 full years in implementing this exercise. Had the bill been brought in 2014 itself, by this time, the census process, the delimitation process, everything could have been done. But they did not do it. They deliberately did not do it because they wanted it to delay it as much as possible. Now, I don't call it a bill as the government says that we brought the women reservation bill. It's an arrogant and a loaded statement. My take is totally different. The brave women of this country have snatched their 33% rights from the government, which is led by the politicians who are misogynist and who are the patriarchal. So this is how it should be viewed. So as early as possible, this exercise, or whatever they call it, should happen, and this 33% quota can start immediately, and that OBC quota within quota must also be implemented. These things could have been ironed out if had the BJP discussed this bill well before with the opposition bringing in the parliament. Anyway, it's a welcome thing. It has been a done exercise. With whichever government comes in, I think they will implement it immediately.
Okay,
Can I give a 10-second response?
Yeah, I'll come back to you, Mr. Nikam, but we have Shreya Sharma who has now joined us. Let's actually get in the legal voice here. Shreya, can it be done? Can these legal hurdles somehow be breached through amendments and this process expedited, or it is going to be a good decade or maybe more than 10 years for this bill to be finally implemented and seeing light of day?
Right. So in the legal sense, like we've been talking about. I think so. It cannot be implemented now. It cannot be implemented immediately because with the law that is there in place right now, there is a process that you have to follow. There are two processes. One is the delimitation exercise and the census. So you need to make sure that both of these things are done before you actually pass a bill like this in the parliament. So this would basically mean that you have to first to explain what the delimitation exercise would look like, you would have to make sure from the Election Commission of India to make sure that all the boundaries, it basically redraws the boundaries of the parliamentary and the assembly constituencies so that it matches the balance and the population, and so it's done in a proper way. So you can't just say that okay, today it's this way and tomorrow it will change and become something else. So you have to go through that process completely, and you also have to check the census of the most recent census, because that is the only way you know how the country is functioning right now, what the population is right now, what balance needs to be created. These two processes need to be done.
So is there a loophole, Shreya, in the most recent census or a past census, considering Rahul Gandhi in that press conference mentioned about the 2011 census? Why cannot that data be relied upon and this entire implementation be pushed forward, in fact implemented as soon as possible? Is that a technical point or a loophole that can be looked at?
Actually, so the census that was already done has been done, and now that there are a couple of months left for the 2024 elections, ideally you're not supposed to do it till that time.
Okay.
And, you're supposed to do it post 2024. And so my opinion is that you cannot base it on the 2012 census. You need to do it on the most recent
census. Okay, all right. Yes, Mr. Nigam, you wanted to make a point. What Ravi was claiming was that why delay it for another 9 to 10 years? Why not do it at the start of the Modi government regime in the country, if at all the intent was towards bringing in a women's reservation bill?
Griha, in fact, the law, once it receives the assent of the president, it will become a law. The bill will become an act and it will become a law. And as I said, it is the Delimitation Commission which will redraw the boundaries, constituencies. The number of seats of the Lok Sabha has been frozen till 2026. That is what the law is. So Delimitation Commission cannot, do it before that.
Yes.
It has to be after 2026 because law has already frozen the number of seats. And the previous census and the recent census, the difference is the population has changed over a period of time. At least 25 to 30 crores people have been added. One, the gender ratio of a particular, constituencies would have also changed. All this will come out through census data. And secondly, let me expose the hypocrisy of those people who are trying to bring in various things. None of the parties of the India Alliance made any amendment, brought any amendment to the effect of the objections they had in the parliament. So they all passed it without any. At least you should have tested this thing before the parliament by bringing the amendments to this particular bill. But nobody did that. Even one or two people who did that, they did not press after the voting. They never wanted to press it also. So everybody wanted the law to be passed, one, so there is no hindrance and it becomes a law, and the rest process will follow. Process will take its own natural time, and till then the political parties should give more tickets to women, at least 33% tickets to the women on their own, and also reserve 33% seats within their own organization as BJP has done in its own organization.
Okay. Ravi, the important point that Deshratan Nigam is mentioning, and this is an accusation against the Congress party. Even though they're claiming that the bill is theirs, they were the ones who introduced it during Rajiv Gandhi and Narasimha Rao's tenure. What happens to the OBC quota? It was not part of that introduction back then as well. So why are they claiming about it and crying foul over the current bill in its current form? That also lacks it. But the Congress didn't have it either.
They did not know it. The bill was never discussed before the presentation. Only after presentation of the bill, the Congress or the India Alliance came to know that there is no OBC quota in it. And it was, of course, not there in 2010 also when the Rajya Sabha had passed it. But point here is that there was an ample 1 decade available to the ruling party as well as the opposition to discuss it and iron out all kind of the problems in it or shortcomings in it. And by this time, we would have seen 180 women MPs sitting in the parliament. That's what exactly I want to say, that they don't have the intention to do it. So deferring it by another 6 years or 10 years is just like, living in a fool's paradise and trying to fool with the people or the women with this women empowerment bill. So that's what Congress is against, and they are going to do it. The many parties, the BJD gives 33% ticket to women. The TMC gives more than 33% ticket to the women. There are many parties who are already giving it, and they will continue to give more seats to the women in the forthcoming election. But point is, there is no hindrance in implementing
No, but my question to
the bill
you, Mr. Ravi Srivastav, is this agitation a waste of time? Because legally, technically, it's not possible. It is only going to be implemented post-2029. So even if there is a hue and cry about why and how there is no OBC quota introduction, no quota within quota, what is the Congress and the opposition really going to do about the agitation?
Congress did not have the adequate power in the parliament in 2010. They could not do it. The fact is this. 10 years, the BJP had a brutal majority. At 278 in 14 election and 303 in 19 election. Enough of people were available. They could have gone for an amendment as well. They could have, even the delimitation exercise, you think is an overnight job. It's a cause for individual hearings. It will take at least 4 to 5 years for completing the delimitation exercise. Census itself will take more than 2 years. So this is not going to happen.
And that's why I said exactly, isn't it a lost fight that the Congress and the opposition is really fighting? But I'd like to thank all my guests for joining me this evening. That's all the time that I had. We'd have to see where this entire political narrative is headed. That's it from me. My colleague Shivani Gupta is up next with Plain Speak.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. The India-Canada ties have deteriorated in the last few days. On Thursday, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reiterated his charges against India. But after being asked several times on evidence to back his allegations, he just said that Canada has credible reasons to believe that Indian agents were involved in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. However, India has called these allegations absurd, motivated. Let me also remind you that the Ministry of External Affairs has officially said that Canada has still not shared any credible evidence or information on Nijjar's killing that they're using to link India to it. Canada's partners of the Five Eyes Intelligence Sharing Alliance have shown concern at Trudeau's allegations. They have urged for full investigations, but none of them have really stepped up to condemn India in the manner that possibly Trudeau was expecting from his global allies. It seems like Trudeau has thrown not just the relationship of his own country with India in jeopardy, but even those of the other Western countries who don't seem to be willing to be drawn into this war that is not of their making and possibly shouldn't have started in this fashion to begin with. The question that also arises is, why would or what compelled Trudeau to make